Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Making Action Happen. I'm Sarah Blackhurst.
And I'm Brian McCain.
We are taking a little bit of a break from the usual candidate episodes that we've been doing lately because we have some very special friends with us to talk a little bit about a ballot measure and some of the impacts of the ballot measures that are happening or that will be on the statewide ticket this session. And so I want to start by letting you guys both introduce yourselves. Chrissy and John are joining us by Zoom today, of course, because they're in Denver and it's a bit of a trek down here. But we really thought it would be good for everybody as they're deciding how they're going to vote and on what they're going to vote on in the usual manner. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive, have an authentic discussion on this particular issue. So we start, but both of you, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it that you're doing this. Will you start by first, Chrissy, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your background and what you work on? And then John, we'll turn it over to you.
Sounds great. And thank you, Sarah and Brian, for having me. I'm Chrissy Faraci. I am a local consultant based in Denver that does political work all over the state of Colorado and love to visit my friends in southern Colorado. Wish I was there in person. Thanks again for having me. I'm part of the campaign team for the Coalition of Beer and Wine and Grocery Stores. Yes on 125 and 126. John, over to you.
Hi, I'm John Jaramillo. I'm the president of the Hispanic Restaurant Association and one of the co-founders, along with Celine Nestor. I'll quickly give you our mission and vision statement. Our mission statement is to advocate on behalf of the Hispanic restaurateur to open and operate their restaurants effectively and efficiently, and that's part of this discussion. And our vision statement is to educate and elevate the Hispanic community across a multi-generational spectrum. And I want to be clear, we serve everybody in the restaurant community because no matter what ownership or the Hispanic community is more than likely involved.
Right. So, Chrissy, I want you to tell us a little bit about your ballot measure. Let me start by saying that the Action 22 Board of Directors decided to take a neutral position on this because some of our regions are very rural and remote, and they don't have a lot of the other options that what this would really focus on. So, this would really give a lot of options on things, and it would be of big benefit. So the Action 22 board did not oppose this in any way, and we really wanted you to have the discussion on it. But we took a neutral position because the counties that we serve, the regions that we serve, are so remote. So tell us a little bit about this ballot measure.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me. Propositions 125 and 126 will allow Colorado consumers greater flexibility and consumer choice as they purchase alcohol in Colorado. Prop 125 allows for wine to join beer sales in grocery stores. Beer sales have been an option for the consumer since 2019. So this would add wine as an option for grocery stores. And Prop 126 is to allow an extension of the governor's executive orders that have been in existence over COVID. They expire in 2025. That extends third-party alcohol delivery as an option, again, for our restaurant partners and liquor stores in Colorado. I'd add that Colorado has had some form of third-party delivery for the past 16 years. And of course, it was expanded again under the governor's executive orders. This provides greater choice for our restaurants and our alcohol and our liquor stores, as well as the consumers. What it does is it takes away the liability for restaurants and throws it onto the third-party platforms. So it provides those smaller venues to be able to do partnerships with the likes of a DoorDash or an Instacart or an Uber Eats, because many of them, and John can speak to this, don't have the wherewithal financially or the staffing, quite frankly, to have a dedicated restaurant employee with a dedicated restaurant-owned vehicle that can deliver that alcohol. So with this liability being put on third-party platforms, smaller restaurants now and medium and even liquor stores are able to get into the market outside of the national chains that have really successfully been doing this in the last 3 years.
So just to go into it, restaurant in my town, Cactus Flower, I like their margaritas, and I order food DoorDash there, but I can't order a margarita with the DoorDash. As it stands now, they do not deliver because they are afraid of the liability. So what this does is take them out of that liability problem and put it on DoorDash or whoever's delivering it. Is that correct?
Exactly. And let me walk you through how that process works. Right now, of course, again, Colorado's a dual license state. So you have to go through the state and your local licensing authorities to obtain license to serve or deliver alcohol in the state of Colorado. So that doesn't change, right? The infrastructure of how that permitting and local control maintains, this just adds and expands to what we've already successfully been doing for some time. When you order through DoorDash, when you order your food from Cactus Flower, you will, in your application, you will submit your driver's license. It will be electronically verified for security reasons that you're 21. So you'll go enter your license, order your food. Your food gets delivered by DoorDash, and at the door, a 21-year-old or over 21 who is working for DoorDash and is authorized and trained to deliver alcohol will then have an electronic handheld device that will then scan your driver's license again to verify that you're 21.
So there will be no leave it at my door option, obviously, for this.
No, leave it at your door option.
Yeah. Okay. So what has been the pushback on this? What are you hearing? Like, what are some of the complaints that people are opposed to this for?
Well, I think number one is there's a concern of will minors have greater access to alcohol? And I can speak to that. For beer and wine in grocery stores, it's operated very successfully, and grocery stores, I would argue, have better safety security processes in place than liquor stores. And I can say that because they've had much less violations on their end than liquor stores. But I think in general, our state does it really well. All employees have to go through certification and training. In order to sell, they have to be 21. Flipping over to third-party delivery, in the past 3 years, there's been one violation on underage sales. So I would say that's probably the biggest argument against this. And then maybe secondarily, I think there's some confusion about whether or not local control still is maintained under this initiative, this proposition, and it does not change, again, that dual licensing that we have today. Local authorities still have to, give you your permit, your license, check and make sure you meet all the criteria, and they still will be enforcing any violations and making sure that we're all, operating safely and legally.
John, being in Southern Colorado, we have a lot of Mexican food restaurants here that make a lot of good margaritas. And being the Hispanic Restaurant Association guy, what are you hearing from the restaurants?
The overwhelming positive support. That's really what it is. Because once it's explained, you talk about adding an additional revenue stream, that liability piece, which is a key component. Like it's not on them. And then there's not any more money put out. All those capital requirements that the bigger restaurant chains already have and in place, it just solves so many issues. And the bottom line is it helps the smaller restaurateur, which is who we mainly represent.
Has there been any indication from liquor stores that they're worried about this initiative at all?
But I haven't asked them. My mission is always to help the Hispanic restaurateur or the restaurateur in general.
Right.
And I'm going to use a round figure, but it's accurate no matter how we scale it. 9 out of 10 support it. The only one that was question it's like, was that liability piece. Once I explain it, like, oh, I'm in. So, and that's our goal. It's economically, it makes so much sense, and it helps everyone.
I would add that the Colorado Restaurant Association is supporting both these measures, Colorado Restaurant Association is supporting 126, so third-party delivery. The Colorado State Chamber just endorsed both of our measures, Prop 125 and 126 yesterday. We have support from the Grand Junction Chamber for 126. They're neutral on 125. Pro 15 is supporting 125 and 126. So we have, almost 100 restaurants that are endorsing, and many other community partners. The list is long, and I'm probably forgetting a few. But again, to John's point, this is good it generates new revenue. And I think in general, people have grown accustomed to the convenience of delivery. And we've proven that it can be successfully rolled out. We've been now, I think, in the last 3 years, it's been operating pretty good and successfully for all of us. And now all this talk about a margarita, I know it's only 11, but it's making me laugh.
Well,
I have connections. We can get you one.
Oh, nice.
All right, I'm coming over.
Can we send? Well, no. We're going to send it over now, right? We could send it over after this.
Yeah,
exactly.
So one more thing on this, and we'll move to the other proposition. So I know this used to be an oxymoron, but there's a lot of good brew pubs that have a lot of good food. It was one or the other. If they had great food, sometimes the brew pub wasn't that good, and then vice versa. I can see this potentially really making a positive impact on these brew pubs that are also a restaurant, right? Like we have the Shamrock here in town, Brews Ale House. You can DoorDash food from them, but you can't DoorDash a growler of beer.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. And that's just another way to expand their market and bring that revenue in, especially after COVID and everybody, the restaurants were hit hard with this. So,
I think especially, like what you said, the food, all the foodies, it's hand in hand, right? So you've got all these breweries and you've got all these great drinks, and that food goes hand in hand. The only ones that we were worried about in any of this were our very small local liquor stores, but this protects that local control and those local rules. None of that will change. It'll just give more options, right, Chrissy?
Exactly. And again, I go back to 2019 when beer sales started in grocery stores. We've seen the market hasn't dropped. It's only increased. Again, 2019, the number of licenses since has grown positive net 10. So we look at the number of licenses and those sales numbers, and they're just continuing to increase.
So going to the
buy hard liquor at the grocery store, and in all reality, it's more of a convenience. The grocery stores aren't going to your point earlier, Brian, these brew pubs where they have all these fantastic craft beers. In a lot of these grocery stores aren't going to sell the boutique craft wines and craft beers. So you're still, when you want to, access those products, you're still going to have to go to your local liquor store retailer.
Right.
John, you have something?
I just think economically for all those, the brewmasters, every restaurant, whether it's supported by the Colorado Restaurant Association, us, all the chambers of commerce, everybody recognizes how it helps the small business, which has really been hurt in the past few years. So that's why we really support it. It helps, the back of the house, front of the house, because it provides that steady income. They don't have to worry about that. And then the increase in revenue.
So overall, from looking at other states, average sales go up 30% when you allow alcohol delivery. Right. And we have, 6,000 potential businesses that this will help in the state.
And Colorado's not the first state to try to do this, right? The other states how has it worked in other states?
So every state is uniquely different in how they operate or how their statutes relating to alcohol and liquor codes. So I can't really do an apples to apples comparison, but I will tell you that 32 other states allow for beer and wine in grocery stores. 27 other states allow for alcohol third-party delivery. And so, the DoorDashes, the Instacarts, Uber Eats, Amazon, all these members of this coalition have advised and incorporated best practices and standards that meet and fall within our Colorado revised statute. Again, state and local licensing does not change. It's just an expansion and building upon the existing system that we already have.
So, can you imagine what 30% revenue increase on average does for a restaurant? That really helps them.
Well, especially when you're thinking, have seen how many restaurants have closed down in the last 2 years, John?
Oh, I know it's so many. I mean, it's too many to count. And then the ones that, with the staffing issues, with inflation issues, a 30% increase in revenue will save so many in the future.
Yeah.
I think a 1% increase in revenue is life for death for some of these restaurants, unfortunately. But going to the other proposition, the hard alcohol in grocery stores, you said that after beer was introduced in grocery stores, there was only an increase of 10 liquor licenses in the state. I don't know if this is true, but I always assumed there was a set number of liquor licenses, both in counties. A lot of them have a set number, and in the state. Can you tell me, is there a set number that the state allows?
I can't answer that question. I think that's Prop 124 that allows for getting rid of the caps on the number of licenses. I think it's a graduated proposal where it, by a date certain, any one license owner can expand their number. I can tell you that in terms of 125, adding wine into grocery stores, that they still have to go through that licensing renewal and get that joint. It creates a new license, so you'll still have to go through licensing to get that. Hard liquor obviously will still be. We can't. If this passes, it doesn't allow for hard liquor in grocery stores. Now there was a negotiation.
That was my mistake. I thought it was hard.
Oh yeah, there are a few examples of King Soopers, Costco that do have hard liquor, and that was part of that grand negotiation in 2019. Well, and I think part of that, and I don't want to misspeak, but it's my understanding that part of that deal, in order for that license to obtain, is they had to buy out an adjacent liquor store within a certain number of feet.
Yeah.
And so that's how those few stores that you see in my neighborhood, there's a King Soopers, a Target, and a Trader Joe's that all have hard liquor sales. I don't know what that says about my neighborhood, but I guess we're a bunch of drinkers here in the Hilltop Crestmore neighborhood of Denver. But yeah, the 124 is my understanding that it will update again on the heels of Prop 125 and 126, our overall alcohol and liquor codes that are pretty outdated.
Okay, so 125, it's just the sale of wine along with
just wine.
Okay,
yep,
okay, I was confused, and that's my mistake for not doing my research ahead of this. So, but even in that, where I'm going with the finite liquor license out there, we saw liquor stores sell their liquor license to grocery stores, I believe.
That's what I was referencing in the 2019, that negotiation. That was a one-off. That they can't do that under this proposition. This is, again, only adding wine to beer sales in grocery stores.
Okay, that was my next question, if they could do that, because I know some people that made a lot of money off of doing that when that initially passed. Yeah. Okay.
So let me ask you again. There's a lot of other states that already allow this to happen. So this isn't an experiment; it's just an expansion. How's it gone in those other states?
It's been incredibly successful. From what I understand, it's many have had this for a number of years. I believe that the liquor stores that much of the alcohol and liquor code today has been in place since hasn't been adjusted or updated since Prohibition. So I think we look at the public desire and opinion, and people really want to see more convenience and consumer choice and really some flexibility for our local businesses. So the experience in other states has been really positive.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that in my opinion, owning a liquor establishment, our liquor license is very antiquated in Colorado. And totally off topic, I think that somebody should look at some ballot initiatives to basically change some of that.
Eliminate that.
One step at a time. Let's start with this.
Yeah. My big one that never made sense was the cabaret license, where you cannot have dancing in a liquor establishment without a cabaret license. And they define dancing by, I think it was like 15 seconds of repetitive motion. And then if you have somebody that gets busted dancing in your bar or restaurant, it's a liquor violation and they could shut you down.
So Brian,
I did not know that.
Wait.
Yes.
So I was just going to say, Brian, because Brian, at one point in a former life, owned a bar, and this is a real thing. So just for our listeners, because this is wildly hilarious. It's not funny, but it's totally funny. Will you explain this to everybody?
Oh yeah, I owned a bar. It was a music venue.
No, not that part.
Which
the
part?
part with the cabaret. License.
Oh yeah, the cabaret.
People don't understand this.
So they had you had to apply for a cabaret license. It was totally separate. They only gave out a certain number of them, and it was here locally. And none of the new bars had them, and so there was kind of this crackdown, and it was like, the city's like crackdown on these kind of shady joints. And yes, I did own a shady dive bar, but that was one way. That was one tool they could use to give them a liquor violation and bring them in front of the liquor board. Well, I had a cabaret license, and that would constantly get liquor violations. They say there was dancing in your bar, you were playing music, liquor violation. So I went in front of the liquor board, half a dozen times over people dancing in my bar.
So if people were going to dance in your bar, is this still a thing?
Yeah, you have to have a cabaret license.
So if people dance for 15 seconds or more,
yes,
or for longer than 15 seconds in your bar,
you need a license for that.
You have to have a license for that, for
yes.
dancing.
Yes.
So, Chrissy, when you say antiquated, it's a really great term for that.
I don't know if that's a state issue, if it's statewide, but I know in this county that is, or at least in the city, that was a big deal. I mean, at one point, Pueblo had something like 78% of all the liquor violations in the state
were cabaret related. Somebody was dancing.
Oh, it was everything.
Talk about the morale.
People want to dance in Pueblo.
Yeah, and a lot of the bar owners got mad and they protested and showed up to the liquor hearings and threw a fit, and they stepped back. But just even some of the laws, there was an empty bottle of Bud Light, and we only served Coors products in our bar for that reason. And, it was sitting outside the fence. It was within 2 feet, and it got picked up, and then we got the liquor violation for it and had to go in front of a hearing.
So when you see that girl out at the bar and she starts dancing and you're thinking to yourself, that should be illegal, it actually is.
Yes.
Gotcha.
It's we always joked we're like footloose.
Oh, that's
you do need to bring that into the 21st century.
Yeah,
right.
So anything else you want to tell our listeners and viewers? Where can they find out more information, direct them to a web page, and why they should support it?
Yes, we do have a web page. It's yes on Prop 125 and 126, beer and wine in grocery stores. I forgot to add that the Tavern Association has also endorsed this measure, and they represent obviously a number of small, medium, large businesses all over our state. Please go to our webpage. We are asking for your support in November. And John, do you have any final comments?
I'm just asking for the support from the community at large in general, supporting your local restaurateur, the Hispanic Latin restaurateur, just restaurateurs in general. It provides an economic lifeline and extra support so they can, just make lives easier for themselves. So,
and this is going to make
their customers.
This will make a difference for them. This may be the thing that keeps their doors open. So I appreciate
absolutely.
That.
I really, really do think that.
Yeah, very good. All right, Chrissy, we're going to see you at the annual meeting in a couple weeks. Yes,
I hope to be there. Thank you so much for having us. And again, please support 125 and 126. Join our Colorado chambers and businesses and restaurant association, and John and his Hispanic Restaurant Association in support. Vote yes.
I second all those thoughts.
Great. All right, disclaimer.
Well, we appreciate that. Although you are not candidates, Action 22 does not endorse or support candidates during an election season. What we do is offer a platform for our members to come on and talk about their candidacy or their ballot initiative. Right now, our board has taken a neutral position on these. So the, what would you say, opinions and views of Sarah and Brian do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of Action 22 or its board. And I think that's it.
We'll see you guys in just a couple weeks at the Action 22 annual meeting. It's going to be a really great one. We're going to have a lot of fun. Actually, the ballots will have just come out. And so we're going to do a lot with candidates, and we're going to have a lot of discussion about the ballot measures that are here or that are coming up. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
One thing, Chad Vorthman. You have a great bar in your house, and if this passes, I expect you to deliver alcohol to my house on a weekly basis, preferably whiskey. Thank you.
Chad, I'll be up to pick mine up, and I can bring Brian his. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.